Hello everyone, Zellerant here, and today I thought we kind of go over planning for the future with regard to polls. Now that it has been a couple months since the game released, we're starting to see a good idea of what our poll income is going to be through the months, and we kind of have an idea of potential characters coming out in the future. So I thought I'd kind of look over some spreadsheets that I have found on the Discord. One of them I've already shown, but now I have kind of utilized a little bit more planning for the future, and kind of discuss how you can better plan, even for a worst case scenario when units are released. One of the big things that I'm kind of doing is like a worst case scenario when it's the like big polls back to back to back to back, and to kind of get an idea where you're going to be able to get on that. So this was a new one that I found here that I currently have on screen. It's on the Discord. I'll put a link to it in the description here. And so this one gives a full breakdown of where you can get all of your polls in the game. So you have like the frequency, and you can adjust some of this stuff based on where you are performing within the game. Now, getting the max on all these is not that difficult. So you should be able to, at this point, get PVA completed. You should be at master at this point. If you're not, just keep pushing through that. That's very easy. Expansion drills, probably the more harder one for most people, potentially. But still very, very beatable as long as you're manually doing it. You can't just auto it, generally, unless you've been spending a bit. But that one should be fairly easy. So a bulk of this, you should be able to get all of it at this point. And they have another chart over. There's only one thing, and it's over here on the right. It might be a little hard to see. I could probably zoom in a little bit. But we have kind of a quick breakdown of all of them. The only one on here that I've seen that we don't have yet that we'll be getting here in the future is going to be this Tarkov mode. And so this is another mini game mode that becomes a permanent weekly that we will get at some point in the future. And that is 120 or maybe, so that's basically what, just under three and a half polls that we're not getting per month at this point, but we will have. And so one thing they have down here is the full estimates for anyone that kind of wants a breakdown of what you can expect to get on a monthly basis, is without including like the one-time rewards, because we get a lot of those as well. We can see that, and make sure I'm not covering it all here with my camera. We can see if you're a complete free-to-play, when you break down all this, you can expect to get 67 total pulls in terms of the collapse crystals, 27 standard pulls per month, and 8 premium pulls. And then if I do the math on that, because a patch is basically 3 weeks, or we can just go with 3/4 of a month for each patch, because that's really more what you care about than monthly. You care more about per patch, because that's when new characters come out. So if you take that, and the main thing I care about more than anything is going to be your premium pulls. I do all of my collapse pieces as premium pulls. So if we take that into consideration, that is 75 pulls a month. And then if we times that by 75%, it comes out to about 56 pulls per patch. And I believe when you do the math, like we have soft pity comes in at around 60-ish. And so per patch, you're basically getting right there, because you're going to also have your one-time rewards as well that you're going to get. And so you can kind of count them in there, a few pulls here and there from that. And so you pretty much every patch should be able to guarantee that you're going to be able to get a single SSR unit or elite unit. But you have the 50-50 system. So this is where you're starting to see the numbers where even as free-to-play, it's not too difficult to get a good majority of the characters, because you can expect to win the 50-50 on average every other time, and if you're getting enough per pull. So as long as you're skipping here and there, as a free-to-play, you're going to be able to get a good chunk of the characters. Now, looking at the monthly card and the Battle Pass only one here, you can kind of get an idea of those. Make sure I'm not covering those ones up. And this is where it really shows, like, if you're just going to be that very light spender that wants to do just the monthly pass, which is, if you're going to spend any money, I think the best value in the entire game. And it's like that in pretty much every game. And that is because the monthly pulls effectively gives you another good chunk here. So it's like almost 20 more. I think it's 18 plus more pulls from that. And so if you take that 18... you have the 8 premium, 26 standard still there. And so if I do the math on that one's going to come out to, let me just type it in here. My calculator's having a little bit of issue here for a second. But 93 total premium pulls, and then we'll times that by 3/4 for 3 weeks. So that's coming out to just about 70 pulls, which at 70, that is pretty much, you're going to hit the character around there. I have not, I think, gone over 70 a single time yet because Soft Pity starts to ramp up very quickly. And so with the monthly, you're pretty much guaranteed to get it to that point. And then when you come down here to the Battle Pass, that just adds an additional 5. Additional 5 on top of that, which brings it up, I believe, to like 73-ish pulls per patch, which is even a little bit better on top of that. So overall, if you are getting just those passes, but even free to play, I can say you're fairly likely to be able to get an elite unit at least every single patch on average. And then hopefully you can win some more 50-50s than you lose. But it is what it is. You pretty much are guaranteed every other doll if you want to go that direction. So if we go ahead and now take a look at this other one, which is the one I've shown before, the planner. And this is kind of how I'm planning my future pulls based on what I currently have and creating a worst case scenario. Because when you're planning on who you're going to skip in the future and all that, you might want to kind of plan around worst case scenarios. And so this is one for me, and this is just kind of giving an idea of how I'm planning it, is on this one, and I'll have this spreadsheet in the description as well. You basically put what you currently have here, and then as you spend stuff, you put them over here, and you'll just kind of slowly see as your resources start to trickle away as you utilize them. This has the built-in math of already all that monthly stuff we'll be getting on it, so these are slowly going up over here. So you can kind of plan if you're going to go into debt in terms of having pulls and all that based on what your luck is. And so like in this scenario here that I've created is my personal scenario and what I would consider probably one of the worst case scenarios that could happen. Very unlikely that we have this order, but if it came at Cinerisi, Kluke, Mekti, Vector, and then Springfield for a half anniversary, this is going to be a big, really big, I have to pull a lot one because I plan to get V1 Vector. I want to get V6 Kluke, and I want to get V6 Springfield. And so I kind of over here, if you're willing to spend a little bit more, you can kind of plan out how much will you need to spend in terms of getting pulls. And so one of the big packs I like, and actually I think this would have to be 84, not 82. But I buy the one that has the cores in it that gives 42 pulls. There's 2 of them. So if I'm willing to spend $100 a patch, I can say that I'm going to get this many pulls by spending that much. And when I actually kind of put in the worst case scenario, which this is basically me taking 120 pulls to get every character or every dupe, and it shows that even with just at my current position, I have a crap ton saved up right now as well, but if I just spent that $100 a patch, I can see that I will have enough, even if this is what the scenario is, which is having 2 characters I want a V6 coming very quickly and closely together. I will actually come out a way, if Springfield is on half anniversary and Kluke is in 2 pulls, I will have 17 pulls and 5,000 collapse pieces at the end, and what I consider a really bad scenario because this is me losing every 50-50. And pretty much going deep into it. It's like I get V1 Vector, I get just a V0 Mekti, I get a V0 Cinerisi. And so this is my plan. Don't expect this to be yours because everybody's different in this. I've kind of been spending a decent amount, but you can use this for your own scenario. So if you want to remove, and say you are planning for a V3 Kluke, which I would advise not to plan for that. If she comes up in 2, I'd plan to just go over V1 and then save your pulls later. So maybe you are currently at, say, 100 pulls, and I don't know what free to play is going to be currently at, depending on how you skipped. But say you have 30,000, or basically 200 here, and then 100 here, or 300 pulls at this point. You skipped Dush, for example. You can just slowly work your way down and see what you might need. So say you want to get that V3 Kluke. If you want to estimate that it's going to take 120 pulls, You need 4 copies to get that V3. So that's going to be 480 pulls. And so you just put in here that you're going to spend... Now, you're not going to have the 480 of actual pulls, because you can see you're going to go to debt and pulls there. So you'll put what you have in terms of pulls, 132, and then the equivalent over here in collapse pieces, which at 480 is going to be another 350. So at 300, that's 45,000. And then another 50 on top of that's going to be half that. So we'll just go with 52,000 to kind of round it off. You can see here, if you have 30,000 collapse pieces right now and 100 pulls, and you skip everything up to Kluke coming out at this point, you should be able to barely get a V3 Kluke, as you're going to have 0 pulls left, because you're going to burn all your pulls, and then you'll burn down to about 2,000 collapse pieces. And then when the next character comes out, whatever it may be, I'm just putting in random names here for a worst case scenario. You can kind of plan whatever your worst case scenario is here. Maybe you don't care about certain characters, like maybe you don't care about Vector, but you care about Springfield. Well, Springfield, I highly doubt is going to come before half anniversary if they're going to try and accelerate things. So I think that is a worst case scenario for anyone looking at the big ones. But you can kind of plan. Maybe you really, really like... I can't even think of all of them. The electric team. So you want to plan a Jianju, a Lena, a Belka, and an Andrus. You can do that and kind of see what you're going to need to hit all your breakpoints. But as you can see here at Kluke, you push for that V3 Kluke. If you don't do any polling here and you're sitting at this polls right now, how long is it going to take for you as a free-to-play to kind of get your account built back up in terms of polls? Well, you can see after you do the polls here, on the next patch, whatever that ends up being, you're going to have 12,000. So that's going to be, what, like 80 pulls right there, plus another 14. So you're going to have close to 90 to 100 pulls. And at the end of that banner, you will have like 120-ish pulls. And so you actually have a good chance under this plan to be able to get the unit that's after Kluke. And if you're one of those people who wants to save, this may be your scenario. Because you can recover decently quick, because like I showed before, you get a decent amount of pulls. This game is actually pretty good on giving you pulls. And at 120, that's pretty close to a guarantee, just because of soft pity. I can't say it is a guarantee, because technically 160 is the guaranteed amount. But the soft pity ramps up so quickly. 120 is kind of where you can kind of expect it. I think 140 is more or less the true worst case scenario, because I have hit 70 soft pity before. So, but this can kind of give you an idea to how you can recover after you do dump if you want to get a V3 Kluke. Like I said, I would advise not doing this and instead save that. And then we know Kluke will run a couple banners later. And this actually may be why they could do the Kluke here. Because if they rerun after every 3 banners, you may have your rerun of Kluke here. And if you have your rerun of Kluke here, well, you can see what kind of pulls you'll have. You'll have, 437 if you skip the other 2 units. So you can see how just holding off, getting V1 right here, and then holding off and seeing what comes up before the rerun may be the better decision. But that's not for me to decide. I mean, everybody's situation is unique. I don't know how many collapse pieces everyone has, or pulls, for example, how much you've saved. You may have a lot less because you've pulled V1 Macchiato and you wanted to pull Dush for that. And so you have to plan around that. So like if you have only 10,000 left and you have 50 pulls here, you can see you are going to be missing about 45 pulls to be able to pull off getting a V3 Kluke. And so this is just kind of giving you an idea of how to kind of think about future units coming up. But it also kind of shows how this game is actually pretty good in terms of how much currency we get, because you can recover quite quickly on pulls as long as you're willing to save or skip specific units. But one thing I haven't really mentioned here yet, but it's kind of taken into consideration with this as well is pulling for weapons. I mentioned dupes, as dupes are kind of more important in my opinion in this game than the weapons themselves. A lot of the characters like Vector and Springfield have very, very useful V1s, and so you're going to want to plan around those. While their weapons are good as well, it's more important to get that break point on their dupes because they really open up some potential capabilities with them. And so you can plan around that on here, and if you're skipping $1 or $2 here and there, which I know like a lot of people are skipping electric, those opportunities are going to present themselves for you even as a free-to-play in this game, as they are pretty good at the amount of currency we get. And this doesn't take, like I said, this doesn't take into consideration all the options you have for currency. One of the biggest ones is the one currency, I think everybody calls them Doritos or whatever, that you can trade in for a standard weapon. In the future, that will update to allow us to trade it in for 30 pulls per 900. And so if you take those into consideration here, that just makes your monthly income even that much higher, because as you pull, all your SR and SSR units are going to give you some of that currency. You can convert your purple weapons into that currency too that you disassemble. And so you can really get back a lot of pulls in that way as well. That makes it very easy to get at least one copy of every doll as well as some dupes. But it all depends on RNG. I mean, there is some luck. You could be below average luck, and then that's not possible. But for your average person, you should be able to get the majority of what you want. But you can kind of just use this to try and plan around worst case scenarios like I have, dependent on what characters you want. But yeah, it works pretty well, and we'll kind of have to see as more characters come out. But yeah, that's pretty much it. If you like my content, if you could like, comment, and subscribe, it really helps, and thanks for watching.